The Everything Sequel podcast is brought to you by Brew Bar and the Vegas Beer Guys.
Mike and Tom are washing their mouths out with soap because the Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. I am Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man who loves Halloween 5 a little bit more than me, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Hit us, Tom.
Fortunately, we're lousy cops. Perp.
God damn it.
I have to tell you, the first time...
We almost have to talk about that right away, don't we?
Yeah, that's why I put that quotable in. Because the first time I saw that, the comedy cop double act arrived in a hail of what I can only describe as clown car sound effects.
That's my note.
I genuinely thought something had gone wrong with the sound on my TV.
Yeah, right.
I was like, something must be bleeding in from another device. They must have screwed it up on the on-air recording, and you know that I just had to adjust to the fact that this was a choice.
A deliberate choice. My note
when
is...
it kept happening every time they appeared.
Every time they appear.
And every time they left.
My first note when it first appears is bumbling cop clown music. What?
Yeah. Just to put it... I think it's really important to put that in some kind of perspective over the series, because one of my biggest issues...
Is this one of the big swings you were referring to?
No.
Okay,
no.
Good.
No. It is a big swing. It's a big swinging dick. But in the context of the series, one of the things I dislike about the latest iteration of Halloween in the David Gordon Green era is they go around acting like they've solved all the problems of the series. And what's one of the first thing we find in that Halloween, in the Halloween sequel, Halloween? Comedy cop double act.
Well,
it's like, this might be bad, but you've not transcended it as a series, and don't pretend you have.
But the other thing I'll say about that is that, especially, the sequels aren't out yet, but they will be one of them will be by the time you hear this.
That's right. Oh no, I think we're just going to miss it, aren't we? Yeah. Anyway,
yeah. But
you don't need to know
that first Halloween movie, David Gordon Green,
yeah,
you can see specific homage to every single Halloween movie in that movie.
Yeah, also the big one yes, but of all the things to, why don't we have a really good laundry chute sequence, or one of the things in the movie that works, you know? Like, specifically go for the thing in the movie that doesn't work. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, there's a specific reference to what is a really good moment for Halloween 5, because we know Rob Zombie loves Halloween 5 because he's a fucking lunatic. And he has a specific reference to one of the things in the movie that's actually quite good, which is the sound of a murder over the police radio.
Uh-huh.
And so it interests me, like you can't get away from how badly executed it is. But let's not pretend like we haven't seen this kind of bad authority figure comedy before in the series, and that we won't see it again.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen.
And I believe, well, it's not all I'm saying. I believe that these cops have a function in this movie that I understand and respect. I don't enjoy seeing them, but I get why they're there.
And that is?
We'll talk about that later.
All right, fine. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Something that does not happen.
That does not happen, and a subtitle that, once again, does not appear in the movie.
Right.
It's entirely marketing based.
Yes. So for the opening credits, which by the way is my first note, is different and worse opening credits. But The movie's called Halloween 5, and that's it.
I see you kept an open mind.
This movie is directed by Dominique Othenin Gerard. What is it with this series and 3 names?
Yeah, you're right.
Tommy Lee Wallace, Dominique Othenin Gerard. We even have Dwight H. Little, so we have the H.
That's right.
David Gordon Green. It's all...
To be honest, that hiring criteria beats what their actual hiring criteria was for director for this movie.
All right. Well, Dominique, who you seem to be a big fan of his risk-taking in this movie.
That's not true.
You didn't let me finish. I said of his
Well,
risk-taking.
you didn't represent my thoughts accurately.
He has directed Omen 4, The Awakening,
That's
and an awful lot of soft porn.
Wait a minute. Is Omen 4's subtitle is The Awakening?
Yes.
I've seen that movie. I don't remember that subtitle. I remember that movie.
I can't remember if I've seen that movie.
And I remember specifically that it is the Halloween 5 of the Omen series. Because it fucks
Sounds like
everything
you're proving my point more and more with each second.
It fucks everything up, puts everything into a blender, and then the last 20 minutes of the movie is trying to, tries to have some connective tissue to the rest of the movies.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what we do here.
Well, this is a 1989 film. Tom, you could think of this 2 ways. All right, Rotten Tomatoes is on your side. This is not the bottom of the barrel for the series on Rotten Tomatoes. It has 12% on Rotten Tomatoes. However,
you're saying you're why are you portraying that as a success in any way? 12%?
I'm saying that it's 3% more than Halloween 6.
Right.
Which sits at 9%. However,
this is more than 12%, and Halloween 6 is more than 9%. 9%.
You've done the math correctly, sir.
9%.
Yeah.
No, I was able to subtract 3 from 12, but in my mind I was like under double digit, single digits.
Single digits.
I don't think these people are watching movies properly.
Yeah, that's what I say when I talk to Chu. You're watching it wrong.
Yeah, she's watching it wrong in a whole different way.
These
that is
critics
delightful.
are watching it wrong.
These people are not. These people are, I don't know, coming in with prejudices they can't get over. I don't know. It's just wrong.
I don't disagree. But audience participation, I win. This movie had a budget of $5 million, an opening weekend of $5 million, but in the USA and the world, $11.6 million, and that's the lowest in the series. Well,
they probably thought
because first 6 anyway.
Because this was only a year after Halloween 4, they probably thought they were just going to see a re-release of Halloween 4. It was so close.
Maybe.
And that's the big bit of behind-the-scenes context you need for this, is like how much it was rushed into production. Halloween 4 was 88, this is 89.
Right.
That's literally a year.
They rushed it.
To write, film, edit, and release.
And I'll argue once again, that's what this movie looks like.
Yeah, definitely. That's how you have to understand that they didn't have a complete script when they started filming.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't stay with the script that they eventually wrote during filming.
Well, do you have anything to say about the angry slicing of pumpkins opening credits?
I do. To me, this opening sequence really says it all about the movie. I think it's like a movie
haphazard
in a microcosm.
And unscary.
What did you say? Disappointing, wrong. So it's the worst title.
Once again, my note was different and worse opening credits.
Right. I also have, to be fair to you, I also have in my notes, worst titles yet.
Yeah.
I wanted to keep my options open. Remember, this part of the franchise is like hit after hit compared to what happens afterwards.
Right.
It's the cheapest, tackiest, kitschiest that this imagery has ever looked. I think I don't want to get into this too much because I have a lot to say about it, but the slashes of the knife, too nightmare for me.
Nightmare on Elm Street?
I don't like too much nightmare in my Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a Reese's situation. You gotta. It's like it's like fish and banana. You keep those.
I was gonna say pickle and chocolate.
Oh, I'd love a chocolate pickle, but I wouldn't. Maybe that's what this movie is, a chocolate pickle. But I wouldn't want a fish adorned with banana. And that's. But anyway, so those two things, which are very representative of how this movie plays out, but. Once it's over, I actually think, I quite like the idea behind it. That it's just a pumpkin being sliced. And then the Carpenter theme comes in, and I'm like, okay, that's, I understand where it's coming from, but I didn't necessarily enjoy it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Also very scared the amount of writers that are credited on the movie.
Yeah.
So, really, all my feelings about this movie come out in that opening sequence. There's some notes of redemption, and I think that's how I'm approaching this movie. There are notes of redemption in it, even though it's in many ways a big misstep.
Well, I still contend. I think I used the word before. I think I used the word Hallmark movie, but I meant Lifetime because you like the Lifetime movies.
I don't get that at all.
This is the Lifetime version of a Halloween
Lifetime
movie.
movies are not experimental. I think the biggest problem here.
I'm talking about quality.
Oh. Move on. I'm not going to make many defenses.
There is no defense,
not going to make
right?
No, I'm not making any defenses about quality, but ambition and experimentation is something that this movie needs to be given credit for, especially coming after Halloween 4, whose sole purpose was to play everything straight down the middle, and this movie decides to take a different track. And I think it was the right track to take. It probably just wasn't the right people or collection of people to do it.
All right. Well, let's get into the actual story. What happens after our pumpkin? Is it is the first thing we see? So basically we're seeing the impasse, right? We're seeing.
I was going to say the beginning of this movie is the end of
Halloween 4,
as it never happened.
Right. I was going to say with closer up shots and that kind of shit.
Yeah. There's two big impasses here, which for me is the recapping of footage. Well, no, specifically the beginning the next movie with the end of the previous movie,
mm-hmm.
which is actually by this point bit retro. This is more of a 70s, 80s thing. Most sequels have moved beyond this by 1989, by the way. Because we're nearly in the 90s now, and then it's just a bunch of retcons. The biggest one being that Jamie didn't really kill her mother.
Whoa.
So they re-edit.
Okay, well let's save that for right now. Let's just talk about Michael in the shaft. Because did you know that one of the things they were gonna do was kind of Friday the 13th it, and he was gonna just be stuck in that shaft, and then a bolt of lightning was going to reawaken him?
That's not even the weirdest part of what they didn't do, because do you know the production story about how Michael is resurrected in this movie, about how it was supposed to happen?
I'm not remembering it offhand.
Okay, well, a lot of people listening won't, so I'll go into a little bit of detail about that.
But I do well, go ahead.
The original conceit was, and you can still see traces of this in the production design of these scenes, that Michael's dead, I say that emphatically, dead body was retrieved by a voodoo priest living somewhere on that river near Haddonfield. Somewhere between Haddonfield and Smith
and South America.
which is where everything in these sequels takes place. It was retrieved by a voodoo priest, and after a year, somehow this body didn't rot, and he resurrects Michael using voodoo magic, and then Michael responds by taking that life and then taking a life by murdering the voodoo priest.
All right. So
and at some point,
that's very present.
At some point in this process, the producers, including Mustafa Akkad, got cold feet about Michael's first kill being for a character who people might see as unsympathetic. There's obviously some implicit racism in there.
Wow.
Of why is this voodoo priest unsympathetic? Probably because he's African American. So they wanted his first kill to be someone that the audience liked, and that's how it got reshot as a kindly old hermit takes him in,
who has built a shack next to the river,
looks after him for a year while he's apparently unconscious. He must be feeding him too, and then Michael wakes up after a year-long coma.
My note is, who keeps Michael Myers alive for a year?
And how?
And yeah, exactly. The logistics of it as well.
Is he just sliding apple slices through the mask?
I do like his
the mask is off, right?
I always, the mask is off also, yeah. But I also always did kind of like his James Bond escape through the tunnel as the dynamite comes and the explosion and, sitting in the river. I always liked all of that.
I love the fact that, because they intercut it with the footage from the last movie, and I love the fact that even after a year, he's emerging from the river as a different man with a different mask. Only 1 year has passed. They're filming this literally months has passed since this movie came out. And it's like you've the basis for more consistency than we've ever seen before between two sequels.
And it doesn't exist.
And it doesn't exist.
Not just that, let's go to Mask Watch.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do an early Mask Watch. Yeah.
This is the worst mask.
Really?
For me, of all the masks. I hate it even more than 4.
I have no notes. I realize I have no notes about the mask, so...
Wow. Well, for two reasons. One, the fraying out of the mask, where it's like the corners look like a bow tie. Sticking out in front of his jumper. Yeah. And then also I noticed that the eye holes seem to be covered with a black cloth.
Well, he learned his lesson after getting poked in the eye by Jamie Lee Curtis with a coat hanger.
This cloth ought to take care of it. Done and done. I hate everything about that mask. Except that it at least looks a little...
That he takes it off?
Yeah.
A couple of times?
Well, I like that it's not as shapeless and ghost white as the Halloween 4 mask.
Yeah, my feeling is that the Halloween 4 mask is more egregious, but there's a better movie around it, so maybe that's why.
But I also... because I the Seinfeld of where somebody looks the woman that looks different in different lighting.
Yes. Yes.
That mask is like that. That mask looks really good in certain scenes and then truly terrible in other scenes, which is weird about that mask. It's there I have notes on that movie where I'm like, "Oh, well the mask looks good here. Maybe I don't remember this mask being as bad as I thought. Oh, nope, now it looks like shit again." Stuff like that.
And you don't have to limit that to the mask. That's the entire viewing experience of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, if you've seen you're coming in from one of the most solid Halloween movies in the series,
Yeah.
you're sort of like, oh, but I mean, it's all the same characters, all the same actors. How bad could it? Oh, okay.
Right.
I see what they did. They made it bad, didn't they? And then it goes, and then you get certain set pieces that really work in their own right. You don't understand why they're in this movie, but and this is where I think the Voodoo Priest is a big loss, because I think everybody agreed that it would make for a very exciting opening. And not to get too much into behind the scenes anecdotes, but Dominique, Othen, and Gerard got this job by walking into Mustafa Akkad's office, taking the script he'd been asked to read for Halloween 5 and throwing it in the trash can. That's how he got the job. And the fact that... So, if you give that guy the job...
I'd like to know what that script was.
It was something that... It was the kind of movie you'd like, that was like riffing off Halloween 4 and trying to do the same things.
All right.
And he said, hey, you can't do this. You've got to make it different. You've got to make it more like the original Halloween. We'll talk about that later.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, what?
Open tabs. Let's open. It's a tab. We'll keep that open.
I'm getting more upset by the second. What?
But he said you can't play it safe. You need to do things different. And Akkad said, okay, go off and do what you want. Oh, by the way, you can't do that or that or that. So come up with, in a day, a better idea. And Kindly Old Hermit is, it's not an adequate replacement for what we would have got. But I guess it's the best of a bad job.
The only thing I do like about it, though, is that to me...
It's like a sitcom?
Well, no. So, specifically about sort of the mythology of Michael Myers, and that the fact that that he is the boogeyman and can't die. So,
yeah.
What I do like about it is that no supernatural powers, no earthbound power, like lightning doesn't strike him and reanimate him. Nobody does.
Well, that's what they were worried about.
Nobody
that's
casts
exactly
a spell
why they got rid of the Voodoo Priest.
Reanimates him. What I do like is that, hey, all those characters with their shotguns at the end of Halloween 4, they took care of some business. Those shotguns put them down for a year. And it just took them a year to, recoup.
I can't believe this is the bit of the movie you have the least problems with.
It is.
Because at this point, Halloween, to sort of adopt your persona for briefly,
by all means,
in this scene,
I'd like to see you as a sane person. Go on.
In a madman's body. In this scene, I realized to myself, so Halloween 4 was so good at solving logistical problems. And I realized in this scene that this movie would refuse to answer such questions.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess, that's good. It sets your expectations for the rest of the movie. It's a good, it's a good palate cleanser for watching the rest of the movie. Certainly prepares you for what you're going to get. But it does sort of, you get that sinking feeling of even if the explanation was supernatural, I'd rather we had something that accounted for what was happening, because this is a hatchet job of two ideas that they had to put together very quickly. And one of those probably would work if it was allowed to be what it was.
Right. All right. Well, let's leave it there for now and take our first break, and then when we come back, I definitely want to talk about all the retconning. Sound good?
If you're anything like me, you spend the majority of the day wondering whether you want coffee, beer, or wine. Whichever way you fall, Brew Bar has you covered. Located in the heart of 3rd Avenue Village in glorious downtown Chula Vista, California, which is also my neck of the woods, Brew Bar is a coffee shop, bar, and eatery rolled into one delightful package. Tim and Alex run the place, and let me tell you, listeners, these guys know their coffee. And after you've been in their company, so will you. They turned me on to pour over, and it's literally all I drink now. If for some crazy reason you don't want to try the best coffee in the world, they've got espresso drinks, all kinds of teas, and even coffee cocktails. You heard me? Coffee tails. And we're just getting started. Bottle service on craft beer and wine, alcoholic and caffeinated potions, an all-day food menu with plenty of vegan options. All served up in an atmosphere hip enough to know you're getting the best quality, but not too hip that you feel the need to drive to 7-Eleven and get a bucket of brown swill. Brew Bar. It's the best place to be for beer, wine, coffee, and tea. And if you go, you might even see me.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here discussing Halloween 5, period no more, but really colon, The Revenge of Michael Myers. 1989 movie, directed by D.O.G., I'm going to call him.
Dog. What up, dog?
All right.
Do you know what the working title for this movie was?
Oh, I remember reading it, but I don't remember.
A simple yes will suffice. Simple yes or no will suffice.
No.
I'm kidding. That was dickish. Things that go bump in the night.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Well, I want to talk about what I think to be one of the biggest sins of this movie.
Go on.
I was going to say, in a list of many, many, many sins, but there are the whole retconning of this amazing ending of Halloween 4 is very upsetting to me. To the extent of which that, by the way, Mom's not dead.
Right.
So Mom's okay,
and she sends her love.
And yeah, exactly.
To
exactly.
Jamie in the clinic, which she's in
no
because he tried to kill her.
consequences to Jamie stabbing her mother repeatedly with a knife. Her sister still loves her unconditionally. Yeah. There is no tension in the relationship.
A couple of things about this. I'll ask it in the form of a question. Would it make any difference if you knew that making this movie, they had absolutely no choice but to walk it back?
Yeah, it still does. Like
Mustafa Akkad, the producer,
should be conflict within any movie, and so if you're gonna walk it back, that conflict should still be essential to the plot. But of course, they're gonna fuck that up because they're gonna kill Rachel so soon anyway.
Well, I'm fine with that. As much as I love Rachel, I think that works perfectly well for the movie. But what I mean is literally Mustafa Akkad and the producers said, you cannot have her be the villain of this movie. Michael has to come back, and she cannot be evil. What are you going to do? I mean, you can fudge it like they do here, but you can't really do much better.
Then I'd kill her.
Then you don't have Daniel Harris in the movie.
Oh,
You're going to make your movie about the old hermit man?
I agree completely that you're right about that. But you're populating your movie with new characters. Mm-hmm. So what if it's Tina who becomes our central character?
I'm completely playing devil's advocate because... Well, no, I don't.
I'm just saying.
I don't mind the retcon of she didn't actually kill. She didn't actually kill her mother, and I mean, it's not. I don't know how big a retcon it is because it keeps the idea of a psychic connection between them. It just sort of leans more into the idea that Michael was controlling her from the grave like a puppet,
right?
And I think that's an okay way to go. Yes, the mother dying would be better, but it fucks a whole bunch of other stuff up, so I kind of understand why they didn't.
I'm just saying there were so many interesting choices, and I can't. You're right. I can't blame Dominique or the writers because they had this edict that said, "Don't do any of that."
Yes.
But so I can firmly lay the blame at Mustafa Akkad.
Here, Maverick director. Here's a bunch of fucking edicts for you to deal with, Mister. Make a loosey-goosey, challenging experimental movie, but don't do any of these things.
Right. That might make it interesting.
Yeah.
So, you know, I remember hearing a lot of stories about directors in a certain time in Hollywood, what they had to learn to do because they did, you know, if they didn't have final cut or that kind of thing, they would have to learn to shoot and give only the things that they wanted.
Right.
So that it had to be edited in the way that they wanted it. So I don't know if Mustafa Akkad was on set, but I think it would be pretty funny if Danielle Harris, say they took the tract of making her evil, and then only filming that.
Oh no! Too many people breathing down his neck. He'd just be fired.
Yeah.
Already a bunch of people had walked away from the movie by that point. What offends me more, actually, is making Jamie mute.
Yeah.
Because that serves no purpose in the plot.
Right.
As far as I can see. Disturbed in a clinic, yeah. Mute. No, and it hamstrings Danielle Harris's performance. Not as much as you think it would.
Right.
Because
she's great.
Incredible. But she's even better when you realize she's not allowed to speak for 3/4 of the movie, and she still puts in a completely heartfelt performance, which, you know, she does Psychosis better than a lot of
most adults, right?
I mean, I'd rather see her than even, like, you know, I think even Ed Harris fucked that up once or twice. You know, this is like. She does it. I think it's because she does it so fluidly and effortlessly. In the same way that in Halloween 4, she took on the mantle of the final girl without any preconceptions or second guessing what that should be. She just went with what the script told her to do.
Right.
And I think the script is pulling her in all kinds of directions here, but she just does it with a kind of grace and confidence that. Again,
that
like,
you don't normally see in that young an actor.
I, as an actor in my late 30s, would fucking die for.
Right, right.
Well, so that's disappointing that they went with, but I get that. I get the sense very early on that, you know, everything's gonna be a little more melodramatic and high strung than we're used to, and making her mute is very much speaks to that.
Yeah, that's true.
The way that nurse is kind of throwing herself around the clinic when she's trying to calm Jamie down from a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, everything's gonna be just that bit extra when it comes to performance, visual style.
Well, let's talk about visual style too, because this movie. Well, my note is that the camera looks like the head of a snake. There's all these sweeping camera movements that make me a little bit seasick.
My biggest criticism, I think, of the visual style of this movie, and this is on the director and the cinematographer, they just seem to be throwing in different kinds of shots for no reason.
Right.
Like, there's a moment in this, you know, in this kind of early on in the movie, the camera just suddenly goes upside down for no reason.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, it's literally like, we want to turn this movie on its head, but there's nothing motivating that to happen. It's just showing it with the camera.
It's not Heath Ledger's Joker when he's finally caught and the camera turns around.
I think
we talked about him right side up when he's hanging upside down.
Right. I think we talked about this briefly with the second Last Summer movie, that I remember seeing shots that were technically very strong but had no purpose in the movie, like zooming in and out of a rear view mirror. like seeing everything in a rearview mirror. I'm like, yeah, great. What's that got to do with the movie? And I feel like there's 100 of those in here.
Right.
Like, what's this got to do with the material? And like I suppose my overarching feeling is that nationality plays a huge part in this.
Okay.
Well, actually, I guess more continent than nation, because he's a Swiss director, right?
I believe so.
Who started in European cinema. Now, the Taking Shape book sort of speculates that he was trying to make an Italian giallo film, which I like that theory, and they back it up really nicely. But to me, and I like the fact that, because he's not Italian, but he has a European sensibility when it comes to directing this movie. I see, elements of the French New Wave in here. There's some of that Italian giallo stuff, absolutely. But it's so weird because even though American horror cinema derives from European traditions like German Expressionism,
right.
And, even that giallo influence, which is huge on people like De Palma and Carpenter, this is as close to homegrown American horror cinema as it gets. Like the Halloween brand.
Right.
It's just something that once you put a European sensibility on it just doesn't work anymore. Mm-hmm. Which is
so
weird.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the whole thing.
I think that's a huge part of it. I think it is like... It's like, like theoretically, the idea of doing a European spin on a Halloween movie should work because of the roots of what Carpenter was doing. Mm-hmm. But actually, it's it's like jazz or something. It's an indigenous American art form.
Right.
That the Halloween movies are like, it's like the Norman Rockwell of horror cinema. It's like you can't apply any other...
It's like everybody that was working on it was trying to do a Dizzy Gillespie kind of a thing, and then Thelonious Monk came in.
Right.
And started playing the notes that we weren't supposed to hear.
Yeah, and if in Young Indiana Jones and the Mystery of the Blues follows that up in some detail.
There you go.
Some would argue too much detail, but you get Jeffrey Wright and Harrison Ford, so... Fuck you. Anyway, so it's a different argument. But I think that's a huge part of it, and I think that's where this is an interesting experiment in that way as well. It's like you have to be and I think it gets worse the more he tries to make it like the original Halloween, which apparently was what he was trying to do.
You see
no evidence of that. I think this is definitely more of a suspense-driven movie than Halloween 4 was. Halloween 4 for me is an action movie. This is a suspense movie at times. But in other respects, it couldn't be more different from what.
See, and I guess for me is that this movie doesn't have action or horror or suspense. Like it's devoid of all of that for me. Let's talk about Rachel. Now, I agree with you. I don't give a shit that they kill her early, especially since clearly there's no conflict within the family, so there's no story reason to keep her around. I guess my problem...
Right. And it was his homage to Psycho, which I get. What's wrong with that? All of these movies reference Psycho. And his idea of what a reference to Psycho was that, you do a Marion Crane, you kill her 20 minutes into the movie. Makes sense.
Well, my understanding is that it goes beyond that. Like, one of the reasons they killed Rachel was they wanted to give everybody the sense that nobody's safe.
Right.
I didn't get that from that kill.
Well, why not?
I just think because
she was pretty much one of the most popular new characters.
Yeah. It doesn't... I don't know. There's a disconnect for me. I can't even explain to you why there is.
Yeah, it's not very good.
It's just not good. Exactly.
It's not good.
I think it's just because
I'm talking about ontologically. Why is... like?
I guess part of my problem is that Rachel in Halloween 4 is so great at flying by the seat of her pants. She's the classic great heroine of being able to do whatever she has to do to survive.
Right.
And in this movie, the way they try to pay homage to that is so weak, where she's just wrapped up in a towel and she, can clearly sense something's not right. And you think she's going to die in that moment, and she doesn't. And she gets outside, and the dog comes back. And then she goes back inside 2 minutes later after the cops have left, and because the cops, our bumbling heroes, have checked the house and it's all good.
That's what I mean. They matter. These cops matter.
That's true, but clearly they're bumbling because they're not good at their job. Because he's just in the house, so you think she's going to be safe, and then she goes back inside. But that, like, it's just, to me, I never have a moment in this movie where I think she's going to stay with us the whole time. I do think she's going to die. And I think that's part of my problem.
Okay. Yeah, I
feel like the movie should be better crafted than that.
Agreed. I thought it was like a very deliberate attempt to make those scenes that you're talking about making the movie more suspenseful than the previous movie had been. But it did kind of suck that they turned Rachel into like an object.
Right.
In order to do it, like watching her getting undressed and all that sort of stuff, and she was so proactive in the last movie that's a big fall off.
Too big for me. Like,
yeah, no, but that that only reinforces to me that let's get her out. Let's get some new blood. If you can't write her, then let's move on.
Yeah, I think I just would have rather have seen her be as great as she was in 4, but still get killed. You know what I mean? Like, I'd like to have.
I think there are.
It just felt disrespectful to the character we know, I guess, and the actor feels the same way. Like,
a lot of people commented that, yeah.
And I think it was even because she stood up for herself. I think Michael was supposed to do something like stab her in the eye or stab her in the head or something. She's like, no. She flat out said, no, you're not going to do whatever they wanted to do. She flat out said, no, we're not going to do that. And so he stabbed her in her, like, right above her boob while wearing her towel. Which even seems worse, but.
Yeah, I know. The solution that they come up with to avoid gratuity is always more gratuitous.
Right.
That's why they're actors, not directors. Yeah. But and this what you're saying also because DOG said said very clearly, I wanted to do Psycho. But I think what he doesn't understand, I think what is totally subconscious, when he got this job, he watched Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare.
And that's it?
And
because I have a note here that says, I don't think the director has seen any Halloween movies.
Well, he only saw the original one. He's on record saying he didn't see 2, 3, or 4. And his original pitch to Mustafa Akkad was, he says, you can't mix up these movies. Like, you have to do something that's straight Halloween. You can't be ripping off Nightmare and Friday the 13th. And the script I've got that you gave me is like an amalgam of all those 3 movies. And what does he do? He goes out and makes a movie that is like a little bit Friday the 13th, a little bit Nightmare on Elm Street, not much Halloween.
Right.
It's unbelievable. Like, this guy has no self-knowledge. Even just watching those movies, I think it just subconsciously imprinted on his brain so that when he was directing. And I think, if you think about the Friday the 13th and later Nightmare movies, they make a big deal of starting the next movie with a surviving character and then killing them really early in the movie. Mm-hmm. Like, a few of those sequels do that. And I just, like, the gradual slaughter is really more of a Friday the 13th Nightmare thing than a Halloween thing.
Yeah.
And even the way the characters are represented as kooks, and the teen characters are all kooks and weirdos. That feels way more Friday the 13th.
Way Friday the 13th. Yeah, absolutely.
So he spectacularly failed
at the one standard he set for himself.
That he set for himself, and that he convinced Mustafa Akkad to give him the movie to do. And that is, to me, is probably the biggest misfire of the movie, is knowing that, because I had read that, forgot it, watched the movie, tons of notes about how, this is leeching off Friday the 13th and Nightmare, the whole pitchfork stuff, the slashes, the plot structure of a Friday the 13th, the opening sequence. And I was like, okay, so he failed. If that was what he was trying to do, then he specifically failed at that.
Well, let's take another break and then we'll come back.
Okay, sorry, throwing a lot at you here.
We still have plenty to talk about. We got a barn scene. We got the laundry chute. We got plenty to cover.
Haven't even talked about Loomis yet.
I know. And this is a fucking Halloween movie.
This is a big movie for Loomis.
All right, let's take a break and then we'll come
back.
That
he's in it a lot. I like to think I know something about beer. But nowadays, even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day, you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need. The Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook. They're on Instagram. They'll try new beers. They'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here discussing Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, a 1989 movie directed by D.O.G.
Directed by a dog. This movie was actually directed by Max the Doberman.
There you go.
Who you won't be surprised to learn is my favorite character in the movie.
Of course.
I mean, I'm just gonna say this, okay? Apropos of nothing.
Go ahead.
In the 80s, Dobermans in movies were vicious killers. They were dog henchmen.
Right.
Okay? For this movie to show out of the gates that a Doberman is an animal of familial love, which owning a dog who is part Doberman, I know firsthand.
Right.
Is wonderful to see.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful to see. Honestly, Dobermans and Rottweilers, they get such a bad rap in movies, especially of this period. And it's entirely the opposite from what they are like, what their personalities are like as dogs. And so when you see something that approximates what it's like in reality, I was just all over it.
That's why you love this movie.
I don't love this movie. It's a bad movie. It's a bad movie with a great dog.
I do keep giving you too much credit for how much you like this movie. That's not true. All right.
Hey, on the level of dogs, this is my favorite movie of the franchise.
There you go. This franchise kills a lot of dogs.
If that dog was in more of the movie, it might be pushing it. It might be pushing into Halloween 3 territory. Because Max is a great, so you can just see, and it's not about doing tricks and all that flipper nonsense. It's about, sometimes you know when it's a great dog, just seeing it on the screen. Anyway.
Well, as I think about this movie, and we've got some set pieces that we need to talk about, but there's something so very strange, and we've been talking around it with this movie, and obviously the next movie is very strange too. Mm-hmm. And so the only thing I can equate these two movies to is there's, a real Halloween movie standing and looking at a mirror, but it's a funhouse mirror. And these movies are the funhouse mirror reflection of a Halloween series. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. I really like that. I think that's a good thing for people to know going into it.
Yeah.
You might get elements that you expect, but you won't necessarily get them the way you expect.
Just
them.
The cops alone. If you're going into if you go into this movie expecting to see a regular Halloween movie, and then you hear the music and the performances of these two cops, by the way, I adore.
Good.
I think they're delicious.
I don't, but I like you saying that.
Oh, I think they're so bad they're good.
They're in their own little movie.
Exactly.
And
totally
the music only reinforces that.
Movie. It's
so maybe that was the right musical choice. They were so out of this movie.
What I want to know is
from another movie.
What I want to know is, did DOG play them that music first, or did they have to come up with that music based on their performances?
I actually, and this is a bit of a disappointing answer, but which kind of undermines the "it's so bad it's good." He wasn't a fan
of the performances.
It was of the music.
Oh wow.
He thought it was stupid. Because you want to believe that that's the Europe, it's like the European, and this has been said before, part of the European sensibility is you don't really know what comedy is. You think is the idea that you think Cirque du Soleil is comedy.
Yeah.
And that's a prejudice against European comedy, French and German in particular, that they don't know what comedy is, which is why they like Benny Hill and Jerry Lewis and all that sort of stuff. But and Mr. Bean. But it's I think actually he felt pretty stabbed in the back by all that.
Okay.
I think he felt like they were talking down to the idea of them as comic characters, which he was only. I guess if you take that music out, it's not subtle, but doesn't hit you over the head with it quite as much.
Yeah.
Literally hitting you over the head with a rubber mallet is the sound that's being made.
Yeah.
But to go back to their plot function works really well in the movie because they make the characters vulnerable again. Like you set up all these fortresses around Haddonfield. It's like, how is Michael going to break through this wall of cops? Well, if the cops are fucking idiots, that helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it kind of it's like the plot function of them makes sense. I don't remember how they're used in David Gordon Green's Halloween. I remember them having a conversation about a banh mi sandwich, which doesn't sound like it is relevant to the plot at all. That security guard who the closet fell on him and then he found a cat. I don't remember in Halloween 2. I don't remember him being a big part of the plot. He seemed like more killing time than anything else. At least these guys, are screenplay relevant.
Gotcha. Well, so where do we go from here? I mean, we have some set pieces to talk about, but we could talk about Loomis. We haven't given any play to the fact that there's a man in black cruising this town.
That's fairly appropriate given that they have no idea what to do with him,
right?
So yeah, and this is what I mean about they didn't have the script ready when they started filming, but also they didn't stick to the script that they eventually wrote. And this was a late edition of I don't even want to say MacGuffin because MacGuffin is too generous.
Right.
They literally didn't know what this character was or what he represented, either in the story or as a symbol or anything. They knew nothing about him. He was a blank canvas.
That's amazing.
And so GOG's response to being given that, turd on a stick.
So this was an edict. This is like Mustafa said.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This was to create anticipation for the next movie.
Wow.
And they wanted something that would be a through line that could come out in the next movie, but they hadn't decided on what that was yet. So he came to the character came to DOG with literally no descriptive detail of who he was, what he meant in the story, or anything like that. So he said, "Well, I see him as kind of like a soul brother of Michael in some respect. So when we put him on screen, that's what we're going to do." He's also played by the same actor who plays Michael, which I guess is an allusion to that.
All right.
It says, and we'll show him getting off a buzz and kicking a dog. Michael hates dogs, so that's why he kicks the dog.
They have that in common.
Yeah. And that was it. So he passed the buck, but the buck that was handed to him was a useless buck.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's been said many times that one of the reasons that the next Halloween movie doesn't work is that it's been given an unresolved cliffhanger on top of an unresolved cliffhanger.
Yeah.
So like nothing is done in this movie to resolve the cliffhanger of the last movie, and they've got an entirely new unresolved storyline to resolve. So the burden of the next movie is doubled by what happens in this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's literally as meaningless as a character could be in
any movie.
Yeah. And even, MacGuffins, the whole point of MacGuffins is they move the story forward. This is like, there's no story here.
Mm-hmm.
There's no story connected to this character. He doesn't change anything in the movie. Even the ending of the movie, I guess the ending of the movie is based on, is an action of him, but it's an unexplained action and we don't know who it is, so it's meaningless.
Yeah.
And the people, more crucially, it's like a Lost situation, isn't it? Where, you assume that the people who are writing these, a TV show like Lost, know where they're going with the story, and then we find out they didn't. And there's a certain level of portrayal there because you're like, well, this is exactly the kind of material you produce, even if you're not telling the audience what this character is. If you know, as the people writing it, directing it, acting it, it shows on screen.
Mm-hmm.
And if you absolutely don't know anything about that
shows
like
too.
this and Lost, then it definitely comes out on screen.
Yeah. All right. Well, narratively, there are some set pieces that are really great in this movie.
Okay, good. I'm glad you think that.
In particular, the laundry chute scene.
It's good, yes.
I'm not a big fan of the fact that the actor, Danielle Harris, was given no consideration for her safety during that scene. To the point where she's not harnessed. She's literally just pushing herself up in that thing, and they're stabbing a real knife, and I think it actually cut her leg. And that kind of shit.
Pretty consistent with how she was directed throughout this movie. Like, again, DOG had very little confidence in her as an actor. Like, he knew because he didn't like Halloween 4.
How would he know? You said he didn't even see it.
Oh no, he had to watch Halloween 4 like as part of his job.
Okay.
Like you and me when we have to watch movies, he had to watch that because his remit was you got to make a movie that picks this storyline up. So he had to watch that, but he didn't watch 2 or 3.
All right, fine.
He instead watched Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street to his detriment. So he wanted to, in the way he directed her, it was all about like taking her out of her comfort zone because he thought she looked too comfortable in that. Oh, it was bullshit. Utter bullshit and offensive, borderline abusive kind of stuff of like making her like do laps around the building when she was in the scenes where she's running around the town to make it look more realistic that she's out of breath.
Yeah.
Which whenever I hear that, I'm like, it's like, so you think you get the best out of your actors if you make them hyperventilate?
Right.
Like, how's that helping anyone? So it was like a fundamental disrespect for her, I think, from the start.
Yeah.
And that's not, it's all those bullshit lies about that's what makes the acting good is it's real, it's really happening. Bullshit. She can do
Nonsense.
that without. She can
I'm with you on that
nonsense. Yeah.
Well, we also have we haven't talked much about Tina, who's sort of our new heroine in this movie.
What do you think of her?
We have her boyfriend get murdered, which I probably even takes place before the laundry chute, of course. But and then you see Michael in a non-Michael Myers mask.
Mm-hmm.
I also kind of like that scene.
But I mean, that's from the original.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean it's good. I'm just saying, like, if we're trying to latch onto things that are from the original, that's a pretty big one.
Yeah, I see nothing. This movie has no relevance to the first movie to me. I don't. If he's paying homage to it or like in tone, it's nothing like the first movie.
No,
I mean
this movie is very inconsistent in tone, so I don't even know if it has a tone.
Right, exactly.
What do you think of Tina? I'm interested to know.
I liked Tina, and I
like her a lot.
I liked the character. I liked her as an actor.
Agreed.
There's one weird moment where
I know exactly what you're gonna say. Carry on.
So I think it's when Jamie believes she sees Michael Myers at the hospital, and she runs down. And then it turns out it's just a janitor, and they bring her back up, and Tina's there. And they might not even know. Do they know if Rachel's dead at any point? She just seems hell-bent on going to the barn for a party and leaving the child there.
That's what I thought you were going to say. That and that's the kind of the stick that's always used to beat that character is, especially as kind of Rachel had to die in order for this character
to come to the forefront.
Takes some to the forefront, yeah. But I feel like that's it feels like an oversight in terms of the screenplay.
Yeah.
But I think Wendy Foxworth acts it in a way
she does it the best that it probably could be done.
But she lets me know in her acting, she basically acts her way out of this writing corner for me.
Right.
Because she lets it be known, not necessarily at the time, but in later scenes, that she's the kind of person who's trying to avoid darkness.
Right.
Like in her life, basically her life is pretty shitty.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to have to face up. She'd rather believe that Jamie is safe and that everything's fine.
And the one thing I do like
then the serial killer's going to come back and kill her.
And the one thing I do like is that makes her sacrifice all the better.
Yeah, I agree.
So that I really like.
Yeah.
Although I'm not sure what do you think of the car chase? Where Michael's trying to run down Danielle and then at the same time trying to run down Tina, and Tina saves her and all of that shit.
A lot of people like that.
I don't like it.
No,
I just don't think it's shot well. It's not like it bothers me that Michael's in a car, but it just doesn't look good. It's shot poorly to me.
It's like a scene from the Blues Brothers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It comes across looking more comic than anything else.
Agreed.
And also,
Keystone Cops.
And I believe I'm right on this. It also, I've heard Danielle Harris refer to, it was just a car going after us. It was another moment of a really lack of professionalism and safety for the actors on set. She's a child.
She's a child.
She was 10 or 11 when this was being filmed.
I mean, sucks for the adults too.
Right.
But at least they have some choice here. It's like they have some, they can consent. Oh my God, yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of well, my big note is, again, unexpectedly, is that there's a lot of slow motion. I like the way the slow motion works in the last movie better than this movie. They tried to do something expressionistic with it, and it just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. In the last movie, it's just full on, releasing the shells of shotguns. This is what we do in movies in the 80s. We shoot people repeatedly. in slow motion. So, yeah. Another character I wanted to see if you liked as much as I did, Billy. Her little friend at the clinic.
Yeah.
I thought he was great.
I do too.
And he was like, and he was.
And you have a real sort of Nancy Drew Hardy Boy running around the town looking for the farmhouse moments, avoiding cops and.
Yeah, and they put him through the ringer as well. They wanted him to be a BMX biker, like a BMX bike expert. So this poor kid had to deal with convincingly doing a stutter, which he does really well, playing all the notes of the character like a disturbed child.
Yeah.
And they also wanted him to like arrive in every scene with like a cool, difficult move on a BMX bike.
Oh wow. Okay.
And one of the things that really made me hate DOG in the interview I read with him is he was kind of putting that on the kid who played Billy. He was like, yeah, but he wasn't a very talented biker, so we had to cut that element out of the movie. I'm like, first of all,
that's your fault. You hire somebody who knows how to fucking ride a bike.
And also, clearly, they realized it was stupid.
Yeah, right.
It looks stupid. It would have been stupid if every time he appears, he does like a wheelie. But I think he's great.
It would have matched the tone of this movie, I'll tell you that much.
I can't believe, after Halloween 4, we've added another great child actor to the roster.
Yeah, right.
And I like the fact that, Tina is a really good surrogate for Rachel. Yeah. Like, I feel like it's nice to see all the same characters back again, anyway, doing something a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Like dying.
Like, suddenly Sheriff Mika has a problem with Loomis after having zero problems with him for the entire movie.
Also,
Loomis is fucking all over the place. This guy is out of control.
He's so crazy. He's so
I don't
insane.
know what's going on with this guy. I know Donald Pleasance didn't know what he was supposed to be doing and was confused.
The character was so crazy that at the end of this movie, he has like a heart attack or a stroke, or just lays on top of Michael.
Yeah, that's right. But there's like, talking about character contradictions, there's moments when he's like screaming at the top of his voice and browbeating small children.
Yes.
Before like actively putting them in harm's way.
I have a note here that says, do they allow psychiatrists into an ER?
But then there'll just be moments where he's just like chuckling to himself.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, which way do you want to go? Do you want to tone down his character, or do you want to? Because at one point,
or is he unhinged?
Is he unhinged? And then there's I think like a moment I really like, even though it's so scattershot the way that his character develops over this movie. I don't really understand it. We've already seen him turn a gun on a child, so I guess there's no going back.
Well, it feels like it feels like he's going for that. That like there's a bit of him that just doesn't trust Jamie. So he's always shaking her and shit.
And I thought he'd gone full rogue before, but it turns out, according to this movie, he's only ever gone semi-rogue.
Yeah, he was scratching the surface of rogueness.
He throws away the walkie-talkie. He's saying, yes. I am not going to, even if the police tell me not to do this, I am not going to do it.
Well, so can we talk about that too? So the ending set piece of this, first of all, cops, you're so dumb.
By design.
But also this somehow involved
Here's a PB&J pun me.
This somehow involved a fake psychic connection between Michael and Jamie. Like he faked her out to make her think he was attacking people at the kids' hospital.
It's as good an interpretation as I've heard.
Crafty.
Of what happens.
Back to crafty Michael Myers. That's the craftiest he's ever been.
My question is, why is he never? Why does he only have this connection with Jamie, who is his niece, right?
Correct.
And not with either of his. I mean, we know specifically he didn't have it with Laurie. Otherwise, Laurie would have known she was his sister. And he didn't.
Well, because she touched him.
That's it.
I think that's it.
Is that how the psychic connection works? Yeah. Another point against this movie is introducing the Cult of Thorn tattoo, while once again not having any idea about what it would mean. Yeah. It was just as a means to visually link Michael and the Man in Black.
Right.
None of the. I mean, next movie's gonna chow down on that.
It's gonna go fucking ape shit on that.
but right now, that was literally like, oh, look at it almost looks like a 4. Oh, good. Now we know that they're linked somehow. So I don't understand why he has this connection only with her. And I guess you've just answered it. He touched her.
I think that's it.
And then there's some really weird. I mean, we've already described a lot of really weird stuff, but a lot of that weird stuff is kind of explainable by the way in this film was made. Who the fuck is that old lady in the wheelchair at the party? And why is she at the party?
Yeah, why? How did she get an invite?
It's also
all these teenagers romp.
It becomes a Fellini film for like 10 seconds.
Right.
Like, what the fuck is going on here? It's just crazy. It's a crazy movie. But going back to Loomis, I mean, this is 1989 is License to Kill in the Bond canon, and you've got some parity there of like the first time that James Bond goes full rogue. And here's Loomis doing the same.
Full rogue.
And also, I think there's a little bit of an attempt here.
But I also wondered, like, do you like me wonder if Loomis ever let a cop know about his chain trap, or did he just keep that for himself?
I don't know. There's nothing in the movie to say he didn't. But this is something I focused on this time. Trying to think about, because Halloween 2 basically posits that Michael's motivation is he goes after his family. That he's trying to kill his family. That's his motivation. Here, they keep saying things like stop. He needs to stop the rage. So he's killing as a way of killing as a way of not being a killer. It's like that's his motivation, right? He's got to kill
after the
Jamie
car chase, Loomis has the thing where he's trying, by the way, Michael Myers we know is crafty, so it's the most obvious trap to Michael Myers, I assume, where Loomis is just like, go home, Michael.
Yeah.
Where it all started.
So I felt like that was an attempt to move away from the sister motivation.
Yeah,
which,
maybe.
Again, is a nice idea, but you got to replace it with something other than stop the rage, which sounds like a like a protest movement from the 80s. Stop the rage. Stop the rage.
Sounds like a Soundgarden album.
I like one of the things I did like. I like the decision to offset the discovery of all the accumulated bodies, so that the house had like a haunted mansion feel.
Okay.
Which I think was a deliberate ploy that worked, because you kind of forgotten. They do the same in the next movie, actually. You kind of forgotten that all these people have been killed.
Yeah.
And you go around the house and you rediscover them. Like a ghost train or something. And I like that that screenplay decision, if indeed it was a decision. It's hard to tell in this movie. But I got really, speaking of like not feeling uncomfortable about the way Daniel Harris has been treated. By the way, I think adult Daniel Harris is treated much worse by Rob Zombie, but it's all a matter of perspective.
Right.
Just there's something about the way that Donald Pleasance was throwing her around that just felt too real.
Yeah.
It just felt like Donald should have held back a little bit because it was a kid. I don't know. And I know they got on really well and they ran lines together, and she has fond memories of him, so I'm not
plenty of fond memories.
But it feels like in the context of this movie where the director's constantly trying, is doing borderline abusive things to you, that someone should have sort of just held back on that. You don't need it, especially in a loony movie like this. You don't need that kind of raw, like snuff movie feel to it. You know,
Yeah.
that kind of cannibal holocaust almost.
Right.
Like, what am I watching? Is this really happening?
What do you make of Michael Myers' ennui of the Michael Myers tear?
Right. So, you remember when we talked in Halloween that there's like a moment like towards the end of Halloween 2.
Yeah.
We're always talking about Halloween. I'm talking about Halloween 2.
Michael.
Where
she just says the name.
It's like a yeah, exactly. It's like a turning point of, is he gonna fold or is he gonna continue to be a killer? And they give you the briefest moment possible to suggest that he's thinking about it, but he decided to continue to be a killer. And here, I think, consistent with this melodramatic movie, it's the same. They're pulling the same trick, but they're doing it in a more obvious, overly sentimental, decidedly
dripping
European
with goo way.
Yeah, and it doesn't land as well. It falls kind of flat.
Yeah.
But I don't. I feel like there's a lot of things in this movie that people take aim at because, again, it's like, that's not my Halloween, and I feel like I'm fine with him taking his mask off. It's like, it's not just this movie where they're inconsistent about his wounds. He's dead.
Yeah, exactly right.
He's been dead twice. It's like, I don't care about those things.
Yeah,
I just
don't
care
either.
about good or bad storytelling. And this movie has elements of both, but overall it's more bad storytelling than good.
Yeah.
But again, also wondering why they think a tranquilizer is going to work after fire and a hail of
I know, right?
shotguns does nothing.
But he does.
Why is the tranquilizer the golden
get arrested.
bullet?
He does go into jail, and of course the man in black breaks him out. And then the funniest thing to me, like, because it feels very Terminator, by the way, that whole scene.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But just the idea of Jamie going into the jail, I'm like, man, she's got some stones on her, that girl. Because
I'm not sure what police protocol is with inmates, but having a 9-year-old in the cell with a serial killer, can't imagine it's routine.
Right, exactly.
And yeah, again, it's no wonder that the next movie's so insane, because this movie ends with an unexplained...
forced it to be insane.
An unexplained action from an unidentified person.
Right. All right. I mean, I don't know. Anything left for you?
No, I think...
I did have one credit check. I like that there was a character called Fat Sniper.
Oh, I like that.
That's pretty fun.
My only credit check is 2 of the drivers have the same name.
That's great.
Fred Siegel. So, Fred Stiegel. Sorry, not Siegel. That would be ridiculous. So either they're father and son, or it's a supernatural omen.
Yeah.
But that's. I think. Yeah, that's it. I think we've accurately represented the strangeness of this movie.
Yeah.
And some of it, and highlighted some areas that you can certainly defend.
I've been obviously giving this movie a lot of shit, but like we both stated at the beginning, I could sit down and watch it right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's, what carried me through, I think, this viewing was really the quality of the acting.
Yeah.
Like, there's not, like, even as you said, like, I don't think that even the comedy cops are not that bad.
They're good at what they're doing.
They're good at what they're
just
doing.
Misplaced.
And everyone is kind of nailing, like on screen, is kind of nailing what they're doing. What they're being asked to do is so ludicrous. There's no sense in which they could be successful,
right?
Holistically, but yeah, like, and in certain times they're transcending what they've got, and I think Tina does that particularly really well, and Daniel Harris, obviously,
as always. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a different thought about Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, you let us know. We want to